Hello and welcome to the first official High Motor Fantasy podcast. I am your host Matthew. I'm with Kramer
What's up?
and AJ.
Yo.
This is going to be your normal starting lineup for probably just about everything we produce on this YouTube channel. There might be some other friendly faces as we start getting into the season and start unveiling more and more about our fantasy YouTube league. Today's podcast, we're going to be starting out with our fantasy bust. We'll then get into a quick game of fantasy football Jeopardy, and if we have time, we will reveal our favorite late round target for redraft leagues. So, just to hop right into things, I think Kramer, you should go first. Your first fantasy bust, and what are you thinking?
All right, so my first bust. Bears fans don't hate me, but I'm going to go with David Montgomery. He's going off the board right now as the RB 21, fourth round, second pick. My reasoning behind this is just Tariq Cohen and Mike Davis are still in this backfield. They just brought in Mike Davis. I don't think they would bring him in to not use him at all. And although I don't think Cohen is a 200 carry guy or someone that can really carry the workload, he's only really had 100 carries in the last couple seasons. And I mean, it wouldn't be crazy for me to think that he could get 150 carries. That's still, pretty light usage for a back. Another reason I think this is Matt Nagy, his scheming. I don't think they're going to be the type of team to use one running back every single game. They could use different running backs for different games. Maybe you're playing a team that doesn't have good linebackers. Maybe they're slow and can't keep up with the guys out of the backfield, so then you put Cohen in and put him on some routes against them. He'll tear them up. And then maybe, you go against a team with a bad D-line that your O-line is just overpowering. Montgomery's probably going to be the guy in those games, but Davis is still going to get worked in some capacity in all those games as well, too. And just looking at the people in that area, the draft picks, players I like more than him are probably Phillip Lindsay, Chris Carson, Kenyon Drake, Mark Ingram possibly, even Lamar Miller, Penny. Tariq Cohen himself, I think, is a better pick than David Montgomery, and James White's way back there too. Not to mention the wide receivers you can get at the time. It's Stephon Diggs, Julian Edelman, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and Kittle and Ertz are in that area too. I just don't really see him returning that type of value for a fourth-round pick.
Okay. I would, it's interesting. I'm hearing more and more about Tariq Cohen being the bust in that backfield, and I think there is a world where David Montgomery actually is going to be flying up the draft board if he looks like the number one, in the preseason. Do you think he has the ability or talent to be that good, or do you just flat out don't believe in him as a player?
I think he has the ability. I just think that Matt Nagy is the type of person that I would think would be able to use multiple backs like he did last year with Cohen and Howard. I mean, Howard, we're all kind of assuming that Montgomery's going to take over entirely Jordan Howard's role, and Jordan Howard had a good role and he was a pretty good back, but I think that role is going to be a little bit more split up between Davis and Montgomery and even Cohen. I actually think a lot of people I'm a little bit higher on Cohen than most people, I think myself too, so that could be part of it as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on that David Montgomery pick. I think people are really sleeping on Mike Davis's ability as a running back, especially his ability to catch the ball. He caught for Seattle last season 34 balls out of the backfield, and they made a point last season, Chicago, to try to force the issue with Jordan Howard and make him a thing. And I think Matt Nagy's going to like the idea of Mike Davis being on the field and not necessarily guaranteeing a running play when he's out there because he has the ability to catch the ball. So I think that utilization of Mike Davis and that ability, I think, is going to take more time away from David Montgomery than a lot of people would like to admit.
Yeah, and basically all three of those backs, I think that's part of why they drafted Montgomery too, are someone that's going to be back there that you don't necessarily know what they're going to do when they're back there, unlike Jordan Howard. I mean, Tariq Cohen most likely you're going to pass, but he also has the ability to run the ball. And so I think that could be a good choice for them to, spread it out a little bit, keep everyone on their toes.
I agree, and part of the reason I agree kind of with your bus pick is it is partly opportunity because I just personally don't think he's that good of a running back. Like, going into the draft, watching his film, I was not very high on him. I think everyone's the sole reason they're high on him is because of opportunity. But you bring up good points with Mike Davis. Like, I'm not sure why everyone is just totally discounting him. I honestly think Mike Davis and him probably they're pretty similar in talent based off of what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I would say so too.
AJ, go ahead with your first fantasy bus.
All right, who do I want to do first? Let's switch it up. Instead of going back-to-back running backs, let me give you my first wide receiver bust. Well, my only wide receiver bust. It is Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers.
Ooh.
Let me give you some numbers on Mike Williams. Mike Williams is currently going as wide receiver 24. That's really high. He's going in the 5th round, late 5th, in 12-team drafts and half PPR. 5th round, 9th pick. Also, once again, pretty high. Some other numbers. Mike Williams had 66 targets last season. You know who had more targets than that? For one, TJ Yeldon had more targets than Mike Williams last season.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty nuts, man. Also, that speaks to TJ Yeldon was a little underrated last season. But here are some guys going after Mike Williams in the draft. Excuse me. Jarvis Landry is going after Mike Williams right now in his current ADP. He had 149 targets last year. Tyler Boyd going behind him, 108 targets. Allen Robinson going behind him. And so is Christian Kirk, who is one of my favorite sleepers as well, who had 68 targets, more than Mike Williams, and less games, 12 games. On top of that, let's get even deeper, guys. 10 touchdowns last season for Mike Williams is pretty much the only one of the only reasons he is touted this high. He also had some big plays. His big playability was a huge factor for him. 15 yards a catch was his average. In his season last year, 7 games with 2 receptions or less. When he scored touchdowns last season, he had a game with 2 receptions with a touchdown, 1 reception with a touchdown, and 1 reception with a touchdown. They also add Hunter Henry in that reception attack as well, in that air attack. So, to me, I just see a whole bunch of red flags for Mike Williams. At that ADP, I am not touching him, not even close.
Okay.
He is a very talented guy. He's huge, got great hands. He's a little bit. He reminds me of a little bit of DeAndre Hopkins. I guess they both went to Clemson. That might be what I'm thinking of, and they both have long hair or whatever. But just that ability to go up and get the ball. But I totally see how there's a lot of mouths, especially if Melvin Gordon's going to be back. Who knows if he's going to be back at this point, or if he's going to be traded. But he's probably going to be, if Melvin Gordon's there, the 3rd option. And then in the red zone, he still might be the number 2 option, I think, to Hunter Henry, because we know Phillip Rivers loves to target his tight ends in there.
The reason I don't necessarily agree with the target argument is Antonio Gates is gone. So that's 45 targets gone for Hunter Henry solely. Virgil Green got 27 last year, and I don't imagine he gets more than 10 or 15 with Hunter Henry consistently being in there. Then Tyrell Williams left, which is 65 targets vacated. So you don't think Mike Williams is going to take any, even if he only gets 30 of those 65, all of a sudden he's near 100 targets, he has a good catch percentage, and I mean, the thing I would be worried about most is touchdown regression, but at his ADP, are you that worried if he only gets, 7 touchdowns?
I think 7 touchdowns is high for him. I have him currently at 6, teetering on 5, and I think Hunter Henry is really skilled, and if he can stay healthy during the season, that's bad news for Mike Williams. Not that we would ever wish injury on anyone, but as long as Hunter Henry's in the picture, I think that's going to hurt Mike Williams' value. I just think at wide receiver 24, I just don't see that coming close. I think a lot of that is baked into the fact that he scored a lot of touchdowns last season, and I just don't see that happening again this year. If he does, then, I'll eat crow, but
that range of wide receivers is a lot of guys that you're kind of just taking a shot on. Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, Mike Williams, Calvin Ridley, the younger guys, Tyler Boyd, DJ Moore, all these young guys who have a chance to step up that seem a little bit risky, and he does have that touchdown potential. I think I still have him somewhere around 7 or 8 touchdowns, and that should probably be enough to hold him up there, but it is a little bit scary picking him up there.
All right, I'll go ahead with mine, and we were just speaking about Hunter Henry, and my first bust is actually a tight end, and you're thinking, how can a tight end be a bust since there's only a handful that go so high? And I'm actually going with Zach Ertz. So, he's being drafted obviously as a tight end 2. He's going in, the early third. I've seen late second in some of my mock drafts, and I actually have him as my tight end 4 behind George Kittle and O.J. Howard. And you're wondering, how in the world can you do that to Zach Ertz? I mean, last season, he had 156 targets. He's getting Carson Wentz back. That offense should be improved. But that is honestly part of the problem for me personally, is that offense is improved. So you've added Deshaun Jackson. You've added J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who is a great red zone threat and overall good wide receiver in my opinion. And Dallas Goedert is going into his second season. So he should get more targets. We all know about how hard it is for freshman tight ends to get into the game. So he should have at least somewhat of an increased role. So I only have Zach Ertz at 100 targets. That's 56 less than last year. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's really only statting out, a slight improvement from 45 to 59 targets for Dallas Goedert. Then you have to take into consideration Deshaun Jackson getting 65 targets, which would be the lowest of the past 4 years for him. Nelson Aguilar gained 90 targets, which is lower than the past 2 seasons. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside coming in and only gained 30 targets. Alshon Jeffrey at 99 targets. I mean, there's just so many players on this team. They have so many good, skilled running backs, too, out of the backfield. I don't see Zach Ertz having the opportunity to even be a top 2 tight end this year because he's not going to get the workload. He is a great tight end, don't get me wrong, but it's just there's so many mouths to feed on that Philadelphia Eagles offense. It doesn't matter how high-powered you are, you still need to get the ball. And there are going to be games where I just don't think he's going to get what you need out of, drafting a tight end in the 3rd round. We have to remember that. It's not like I don't think he's going to be good. He's going to be very serviceable. He's going to be a tight end 1 the entire year. He's going to be solid, but you're missing out on your running back 2 or a wide receiver 1 when you select Zach Ertz over them. And that's why I think he's going to be a bust, and you're going to be very disappointed if you try and draft him that early.
Yeah, and as one of the biggest proponents of Zach Ertz this season, I think there is a lot of risk baked into that because of the fact that if you look at his season totals year over year, last year was far and away the most targets Ertz ever got. And for him to repeat that, I think would, doesn't seem too likely in my eyes. However, I just love the fact that he is a super safe floor. But that upside, I think guys like me who are very high on him should probably think twice, be a little more realistic, because at that ADP, there are a lot of good options that you could be missing out on by taking him that early.
Yeah, and that's really what it all boils down to. I mean, again, I think he's going to have a good season. I projected him having one of the highest yards per receptions he's had ever, higher yards per target, a good touchdown rate. It's just, I put him at 18% target percentage, which is what he kind of sat at before last season. And I will never be able to take him at his current ADP, and I don't imagine it's going to be falling much. I'd much rather go with a guy George Kittle, maybe a round later, or O.J. Howard a couple rounds later, who I think actually have a higher upside than Zach Ertz this season, of course, with a lower floor.
Now, are you expecting Carson Wentz to kind of do the same as what he did while he was alive last season, or are you expecting him to do
Did we lose him?
better in terms of passing yardage and attempts and everything?
Kramer, you cut out. Restart what you were saying. I'll cut it out.
Oh, okay. Do you expect not Zach Ertz? Do you expect... Try again. Do you expect Carson Wentz to do better this year than he did last year when he was playing, or are you expecting him to drop off in attempts and yardage and TDs?
I have him getting, if you take the last 2 years, so in 2017 he played 13 games, had 3,200 yards, 33 TDs, at a 60% completion percentage and 440 attempts. I have him kind of in between his breakout season and last year. I have him, he's matured. I have him closer to that higher completion percentage. Last year he's at 69%. I have him about 68%. I think he's going to have a really good season. I don't have him quite on pace what he was doing that sophomore year in 2017, but I have him at a pretty good season. I think Philadelphia does want to try and bounce a little bit of the pass and rush. Last year they threw the ball 61.6% of the time. I have them down to about 57, 58. And I think with the addition of Miles Sanders, they're going to be able to achieve that, hopefully, and Jordan Howard, who's a good runner in his own right.
Yeah, I could see that.
I need to make a rebuttal after Kramer. Go ahead.
You could go for it.
Man, just because I'm very high on this Ertz team and this Eagles team, I don't think they're going to try to balance the run. I think they understand that passing is a more often than not a better option on the field. And not only that, but they like to run 12 personnel a lot, and that's the one running back, two tight end set. So that does kind of feed into your point about Dallas Goedert being more of a factor, and I do agree with you. I think Dallas Goedert will absolutely improve on those numbers from last year, but I think the opportunity won't be too much of a concern, in my opinion. That's my rebuttal.
Well, I don't have them like totally balanced out. I mean, 2017 they were the best offense in football, and they passed the ball 55% of the time. So I still have them passing more than they did in that year. But I think last year they struggled a little bit on defense, and then there were games where they just kind of, it was almost like Andy Reid out there where he forgot he had a running back. But then again, they kind of didn't have any running backs.
He was thinking of
True.
steaks.
Very true.
All right, Kramer, go ahead.
All right, so for my second bust, and again, like we said, these aren't necessarily players we think are going to be terrible, but we think that at their ADP right now is not worth it. You should wait on them or let someone else take them and step on the landmine. This guy's in a little bit later in the 5th round, 10th pick, RB27. I have Tevin Coleman. So again, he's kind of going in the same range as Montgomery, and I like a lot of those other players more. He's still in front of Cohen. He's still in front of White. He's still in front of Penny. Even Darius Geis, if you want to take a flyer on him too, I guess. Last year at the Falcons, he had the chance to run away with the job, and he didn't. I mean, he only got 4 touchdowns in an entire year as basically being the guy. That's not going to be something that, you want as your RB2 possibly in this situation. If you get him for your RB3, I could understand, but he has a career 4.4 yards per carries. And, I mean, think about it. Last year he lost work to Ito Smith. He's terrible.
That's pretty sad.
Yeah, and now he goes over to San Francisco. They have 4 backs in that backfield that I think are pretty good. Breida, McKinnon, and Mostert. Mostert's going to keep a job because he's an excellent special teams guy, so he's always going to be there, mostly in a reserve role, maybe not getting that many carries and everything, but he'll always probably have a little bit of a role. Breida's shown that he can do it in the offense, and I think he's probably going to be the goal line guy. And, I mean, he averaged, I believe, 5 yards per carry, 5 yards per carry last year behind that line. I think Shanahan's going to split the work up between these guys. I mean, they brought in McKinnon last year, too, and they're still paying him pretty well. I mean, I could see this maybe clearing up a little bit if they make any cuts before the season starts, or possibly, I don't know. Do you think they could make a trade or anything like that? But, again, I think there are some higher upside wide receivers in this range, and I would be picking Tevin Coleman. I would probably wait until the 7th round almost.
Well, I think a big point to that is Matt Breida's going in, would I get him in our mock draft battle, like the 12th round in a 12-team league?
Super late.
And it's like, I think we all agree here that Matt Breida has way higher upside than Tevin Coleman in that offense. Or we all think he's the best back.
Yeah, best back and absolutely best value.
Now, the thing is that these 49ers running backs the last couple of years have been incredible. They always seem to produce a great running back. So having the main guy would be very beneficial. It's just getting the balls to draft him in the 5th when I don't really think Tevin Coleman's really going to be the guy. I see it more as possibly Breida and then McKinnon and Coleman all kind of splitting work, but I don't think Coleman's going to get the goal line work, which is going to be the most valuable work. So I just don't see it returning for you.
Well, and here's the thing. A lot of people bring up how much they paid for McKinnon. And one thought process that I have is, they don't have a lot of, they have a ton of cap space. I think they have some of the most cap space in the NFL. And then with the rollover mechanic, they're pretty set the next couple of years. The fact that they brought in Tevin Coleman, I think there's 2 possibilities. One, Shanahan just absolutely loved Coleman when he coached in Atlanta and was kind of almost doing him a favor, like I like you as a player, which is not good news for McKinnon. Or B, he looked at McKinnon last year before he got injured, was like, this guy cannot run my offense. He just doesn't do what I thought he could do. I'm worried about it. So he went out and got Coleman. Either way, I just see it as a bad thing for McKinnon. And I just don't think you say the thing or worry about Breida, because Breida, he just played so well last year. It would be hard to say, like, oh, he doesn't like Breida in his offense. He rushed for 5.1 yards a carry. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So I think McKinnon's going to be the odd man out. But again, does that mean Coleman's still even worth it there? If he's splitting time. And I don't think so. All right. So AJ, go ahead with your second pick.
All right. I'm about to end this man's whole career, bro. So
What career?
my second bust is Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
Derrick Henry, man, he is going as the running back 18 in half PPR. He is going in the third round at the 7th pick, and I understand running backs are valuable, so you got to take them when you can get them. However, guys, let's take a trip down memory lane to last season. It's the first 12 games of Derrick Henry's 2018 season. This man is averaging 39.5 yards a game. He has 7 touchdowns. Then the last 4 weeks happen, and he explodes for 585 yards. Absolutely nuts. 39% of his total came in 2 games, guys. 2 games. This guy was having an abysmal season until he played the Jaguars, who were not having a great season, and the Giants, who, as we all know, not good. So Derrick Henry, in my opinion, I just don't understand that at all. And he has, let me see here, 40% of his carries also came in those last 2 weeks as well. To me, and he had a 99-yard run in that game as well whenever he amassed like 200 yards. I just can't believe his price right now. It's like, did we forget what this guy did in like 75% of his season? It just doesn't make sense to me to take him this early at all.
Yeah, I can see where the counter argument is that if they continue to use him like they did at the end of last season, that he would be kind of worth it, I guess. I mean, he's still in a half-point PPR. He's not going to get really any receptions. His ceiling's like probably 15 receptions. And he's going to get possibly still border on almost 300 touches, though, if they run him like they did at the end of last year. And he's got a decent yards per carry once he gets enough, but yeah, he's a little bit sketchier. I'd rather have there's like 6 or 7 backs going behind him in ADP that I would rather have.
Well, the big thing for him is I do think he is a good just pure running back. I really do. Like watching him run.
He's got to wear him down, though.
Yeah, but it's also his offensive line this year is improved slightly, but it was always a good offensive line. That's a big part of it for me.
Isn't Taylor Lewan suspended for the first 4 games?
No.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Now I sound like an idiot.
No, it's all right. They just came out, and he's there's some controversy behind it. I haven't read into it, but I think he didn't fail sample one of his samples, and then he did fail another sample, so he is appealing it. But yeah, their offensive line is great, or good rather, and in those first 12 games, he had 5 games with single-digit carries. I mean, if they're trailing, and I think they're going to be trailing quite a bit, Dion Lewis is still there as the better pass-catching back. I mean, he only caught 15 balls last season. To me, all of this just seems like a storm of Derrick Henry just not being a good play. Now, if the Titans, for whatever reason, turn out to be a team that is up more often than not, then, yeah, Derrick Henry is a guy that will get fed, and he will have a good season, but I don't see that happening, and I'm just going to stay away from him at his current ADP.
I think it's a safe choice as a bust, to be honest. Like, I do think there's quite a good chance.
That's what I'm
why
saying. Like,
I'm actually surprised how high.
But if everyone thinks that, you fade it the other way, and then you take him in like the 4th round.
Well, I would happily have that happen. I know a couple of people who, are drafting early guys like Derrick Henry, for example, are going later, and then all of a sudden he becomes a value. Like, you always have to be aware, even if you think a guy's going to be a bust. Like, I'm with you on the Derrick Henry train. I'm not drafting him. But for some reason, I go into the back end of the fourth, and no one's picked him, and it's like, okay, well, this is a great opportunity
He still has a
to grab
possibility to be
Still a
okay.
trap.
Yeah.
Still a
him.
trap.
You think he's a trap in the late fourth?
And yes, dude. Like, dude, 39.5 yards a game in the first 12. Like, dude, he was dropped. Like, do you remember whenever he went off that first game? He was rostered by like 20% of like leagues.
No,
he wasn't even owned.
I totally understand that. But I think they just like switched philosophies. Like, they realized
I think that was partially play calling.
I think what
then again,
what
do have a
happened
new
is they played
offensive
the
coordinator again.
What happened is they played the Jags and the Giants, and they beat the snot out of them because they're shitty teams.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you the Giants, but the Jaguars still have a good defense. Well, anyway, I may be choosing just as easy of a pick here. It's Le'Veon Bell, and really, my argument, my TED talk for this is Adam Gase is his coach. Thank you for coming. He's going to be a bust. I mean, Adam Gase took,
500 touches.
How many that did just come out that Le'Veon Bell is ready for 500 touches? The thing is, he doesn't dictate how many times he touches the ball. Adam Gase, unfortunately, does. And in Miami, he had elite running backs like Kenyon Drake, and he just refused to use them. He used Frank Gore over Kenyon Drake. If you know anything about football, please do yourself a favor. Just go watch any game film. Absolutely any game film from Miami last year, and tell me that Frank Gore is even a third as good as Kenyon Drake in the backfield, and he just refused to play him. So partly of my concern is he's not going to use Le'Veon Bell like the workhorse he was used in Pittsburgh, and this is why it's very worrying to me. The last time he played a full season, he only averaged 4.0 yards per carry. That's not that good behind one of the best offensive lines that was Pittsburgh in 2017. That's actually shockingly bad for a guy like Le'Veon Bell who's so hyped. He had 7.7 yards per reception. That's pretty good. And he had 106 targets. That's why he was so highly sought after. Why he was so good that fantasy season is because of his opportunity. He had almost 450 touches. But he wasn't that efficient in a very good offense with a very good offensive line. He's going to New York, who does not have a very good offense. They don't have a very good offensive line, and they have a way worse coach. I just personally, it's all those factors on top of the fact I don't think Le'Veon Bell is an elite running back. I know that may be crazy. Not everyone's going to agree with me on that one, but I think he's, above average as a running back. He has a very unique style that's very interesting, but I don't think he's as good as a guy like David Johnson.
Yeah, I do think he's still an elite back. I would say his style does kind of pertain to a team with a good offensive line where he can sit back there and wait and watch for holes to open up. And, I don't know if he's going to get the same volume. Obviously, I don't think he's going to get 320 carries or whatever that he got in 2017. But I can still see him getting 260. And really his target volume, I think, is what kind of holds him up in that high, or not necessarily high, but I would still put him in a low tier running back 1, high tier running back 2. Yeah. But he's still going to get a ton of targets, I think, and that should basically hold his floor up. I mean, I don't think he's going to be the guy you're going to draft him in the first round. He's going to be like an RB 30 or anything like that, but I could see him falling a lot lower than where he's going right now.
For sure, and I'm definitely way more worried in a standard league with no half-point PPR or PPR. I would not even ever think about Le'Veon Bell. But to my point, Pittsburgh in 2017, according to PFF, their run blocking grade was 75, 7th best, and he only averaged 4 yards per carry, right? In 2018, the Jets' grade was 50. They were the 3rd worst in the NFL for run blocking. And you take a guy who,
big oof,
as you said, kind of relies on his style with a good offensive line and still didn't even play that well in his last full season, and then all of a sudden you're putting him with one of the worst run blocking offensive lines with a style where he's supposed to be patient. I see a world where he's running like 3.1 yards per attempt, and that's just, it's going to be awful. And then they're going to be behind, and they're not, you're going to be hoping you're in a PPR league because that's really the only punch you're going to be getting from him is the catches.
Yeah. You got anything on this, AJ?
Yeah, I think that Le'Veon is definitely a polarizing pick. I don't think his ADP is going anywhere. I think it's pretty well, I guess.
That's like a
Yes,
word.
it's entrenched. It's baked. I think it's in there. I think that the risk is there, given the fact that Adam Gase is just known for being just nonsensical with his running back usage. Definitely does not bode well for Le'Veon Bell, even though he is Le'Veon Bell. And the fact that Adam Gase, those reports came out that he didn't even want to sign him. I mean, I don't try to put a whole lot of stock into news that I hear, but especially good news. If you hear good news, I mean, that's better than bad news. But the bad news, when that leaks, I mean, that's just not a good sign in my opinion. So we'll see how he does when he's not in an elite offense like he was with the Steelers. I agree with you 100%. He benefited greatly from being in an offense where talent was just all around him constantly. And having Adam Gase as a coach, I think that there's a lot of risk baked in there, and I don't see myself personally having a lot of Le'Veon Bell unless I wind up getting a late pick in drafts, and then I'll have a lot more thought process behind that, but I just don't think I'm going to take him.
So our next segment, as we talked about, is going to be Fantasy Football Jeopardy, hosted by Kramer.
Yes, sirree. All right, so basically what I did is looked up some stats from last year, tried to think of some things that would be maybe some easy, some a little bit more confusing to try and get you to think about some things before your upcoming drafts. So we got 5 questions set up. I have the top 3 answers on this, so I was thinking we could either each person guesses 2, or you could do just one guess and see who's the closest. What do you guys think?
I say we each get one guess, and if whoever got the closest, or if both of us didn't get any of the top 3, we'll get one more guess.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna. Some of these are probably gonna be that. Some of them a little hard, but all right. So let's just get right into it. So the first question: what QB had the highest touchdown percentage on his throws for the season?
Oh, AJ, would you like to go first?
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes?
No.
Who is Patrick Mahomes?
Who is Russell Wilson?
All right. Those are your guys' guess. I guess we can go back and forth on who guesses first. But the top answer is Patrick Mahomes at 8.6%.
Darn.
Russell Wilson is in second at 8.2%.
Very nice.
And a very surprising Ryan Fitzpatrick in
Knew
third
it.
at 6.9.
I
Very
almost
chill.
guessed him
Monken,
because I was
baby.
like,
Yeah,
all right.
that surprised me.
That one wasn't
All right.
too hard. That's nothing. This is easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
thanks for starting us off nice and easy.
That was the warm up.
All right, AJ's got 1 point. I'll give that to him. Even though you got to go
Yes.
first and pick the right answer.
Oh yeah. All right. So now Matt gets to go first on this one. All right. Who was the running back with the highest yards per carry last season?
All right. So I can either go with a guy who I know is in the top 3, but I don't think is number 1, or I can go with who do I think was number 1? Is there a minimum attempts on this?
Yeah.
What's the minimum attempts?
I mean, I don't know the minimum attempts, but it's definitely not like there's not some random ass guy in here. These are backs that you would start on your roster.
Darn, this is... Oh, you know what? All right, Aaron Jones. Or who is Aaron Jones?
All right, AJ.
Man, I gotta think about this one.
These are pretty surprising.
You know what? I'm gonna go against my bus. I'm gonna say, who is Derrick Henry?
Oh, against your bust. Well, Matt got this one right. Aaron Jones was the leader with 5.5 yards per carry. Second place.
Nice.
Tied for second place. Phillip Lindsay and Kerryon Johnson both at 5.4 yards per carry. So, yeah, you were talking about having Kerryon Johnson in your bus. You turn that shit around right now.
hey, that wasn't on record. Not on record.
Okay,
All
but
right.
quickly, for the record, AJ thought about Kerryon Johnson being his bust, but we won't get into it.
Now it's on the record, so now you're screwed. All right. Question 3. What QB had the highest passer rating for the season?
Is it my turn?
It is AJ's turn.
Who is Russell Wilson?
All right.
Okay, well, who is Patrick Mahomes?
Well, neither of you got the top answer, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Would you like it? Just a random
course.
guess for the top answer?
All right, go ahead.
Andrew Luck.
All right.
That was going to be my guess. I'll go with... Kirk Cousins. Who cares?
All right. So Matt got the point on this one. Second place is Patrick Mahomes at 113.8. Third place was Russell Wilson at 110.9. And the top pick is Drew Brees at 115.7. I think a big part of it's obviously that he had the highest completion percentage at almost 75% last season, which is
Good
just
Lord.
so ridiculous. But surprising again, Drew Brees being up there.
Well,
Cough, Alvin Kamara.
I
cough.
think passer,
And Michael Thomas.
I was gonna say passer rating can be a little skewed when you have guys like Kamara who can take the dump off for 50 yards, and then Michael Thomas who, what does he have, like a 2% drop rate in his career?
It's
Yeah.
insane.
It is a weird stat, and I think it's got everything baked into it. He had a pretty high touchdown percentage and
Really?
decent stats, obviously, too.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they ran the ball pretty well last year. They're one of the top running teams almost every year, it seems like nowadays. All right, so let's go on to question number 4. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, we need the Jeopardy music in here or something. Or no,
Right.
the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Dun, 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 dun. And then like that
We're
really-
mixing a lot of games here.
Yeah. Fantasy Jeopardy Millionaire
I
feud.
like it.
All right. Question 4. What player had the longest reception of the year? This one's tough.
I don't like this.
I believe it is
It's Matt.
That's me.
Matt's turn first.
I don't like going first this one. Can I give AJ the first pick in this one?
All right, I get the first one next time then. I'm going to say Tyler Lockett.
Tyler Lockett. All right. Matt?
I'm between... We'll just talk it out. I'm between Antonio Callaway. I feel like he had a long one. I know John Brown had a few long TDs. No, Aldrick Robinson and Stephon Diggs had some that were like 70 yards. But this is probably some fluke play where some no-name guy just took the ball. You know what? Tyler Boyd. I remember he had a long TD.
All right. Well, neither of you got one of the top 3, so I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
The wide receiver who got the top one is definitely in the top 12. And then the one who got the second longest, he's top 16.
Antonio Brown.
Ah, darn it. I'll go
And
with
Matt?
Juju Smith-Schuster.
Juju Smith-Schuster is the correct answer. 97 yards.
I thought that was last season. I really did.
I think it was like week 1 or week 2.
Oh,
He took
okay.
one just like
Yeah.
a ridiculous amount of yards. Again, 97. Amari Cooper was second place with 90 yards, and then third was the random Demarcus Robinson for 89 yards.
Yeah, I knew.
All right.
That was hard. That one was hard.
Yeah,
Am
that
I
one
winning
was.
3-1? I've clinched it.
Yeah, you have clinched it. But
All right,
we'll go on to the
for
last
bragging
question,
rights.
anyways.
Double Jeopardy,
right.
bro. What happened to Double Jeopardy? This is it. I can come
yeah.
back.
Final Jeopardy.
I'm
You
not
can bet all your
betting.
points.
I'm not betting any of my points.
$0,
shit.
0 cents. All right. Last question. What player had the highest yards per touch on the season? AJ gets the first guess since you passed on yours last time.
Yards per touch. So this is including receptions.
Yes. Which is a big factor. I will say that right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. My guess is Tyler Lockett.
Deshaun Jackson. Lock that baby in.
times 2.
Really?
Neither
Another
one.
guess?
Yep, another guess. Let's go. You guys are overthinking this, I think.
Tyreek Hill.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was he number 1?
Yes.
Really? He had more yards per touch than Deshaun Jackson.
I'm sure
He
there's
probably had some mad carries.
Yeah, I mean he had 15 yards per touch.
Whew.
Julio Jones came in second at 14.7, and DeAndre Hopkins at third with 13.5. I'm sure part of it has to do with Deshaun Jackson generally tends to get a couple carries.
But so is Tyreek.
not
I'm
very many
looking
yards.
this up in my own draft kit. Wait 1 second.
Okay. It might be.
There has to be a minimum on that.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
might be
I
a
think it's-
minimum.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest factor.
Because
But Tyreek Hill was number 1, obviously because he averaged 17 yards per reception. And then had a couple carries, but he also had a pretty decent yards per carry total too.
Philadelphia Eagles, Deshaun Jackson had... Oh, okay. Yeah, he had 17.1 yards per touch.
Per reception?
Per touch.
Yards per touch?
Yeah.
How many
This
touches?
game is officially under dispute.
He had 40. He had 47 touches.
I'm sure, now that I think about it, I think it's a 50 touch minimum.
Ah,
Which would make
well,
sense.
See, I didn't have the
For
proper
all the other ones,
information,
too.
but I still won, so that's fine.
Edit that into the start. 50 touch minimum.
All right, so now I think we're just gonna wrap it up with our favorite late round pick for redraft leagues. I think I'll go first since I let you two go before me when we did our bust. And mine, we already talked about him, so I'll be short and quick. I think it's Matt Breida. I think he is the best back in that backfield. He's going ridiculously late with the upside he carries. I mean, Kyle Shanahan offenses always have great running backs. I imagine it really is going to end up being a two-man split, and it's either going to be Matt Breida and McKinnon or Matt Breida and Coleman. I don't see a world where Matt Breida isn't one of the two. I mean, he had 5.1 or 5.4 yards per carry last season. He had 9.7 yards per reception, that's like the best of the best running backs territory at that point. I mean, if we're speaking yards per touch for a running back to get 6 yards per touch, that's incredible. So, Matt Breida, extremely talented. Kyle Shanahan offense. Yes, the backfield is muddled, but that gives you an opportunity to draft him in, the 12th and 13th round, which is just absolutely crazy.
Like it.
All right, AJ, go ahead.
All right, so this one is a super deep sleeper at the moment. This is a guy that I think should be your Mr. Irrelevant if you are not already have a kicker or defense. Anyways, my guy is Bruce Anderson. And if you're saying who, I completely understand.
Ooh.
He is a rookie, undrafted free agent, if I'm not mistaken, out of North Dakota State. And he plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if you didn't know.
Are
And
they
his
the Bison?
yeah, they are. And his competition is Ronald Jones II and Peyton Barber. Those guys did not blow me away last season. I think there is a huge opportunity for Bruce to step up in training camp in preseason and showcase his patch catching ability, which if you watch his tape, he caught a lot of balls in a lot of various ways whenever he was in college. He caught a lot of screen passes, he ran a lot of routes, caught some on the fly. It really impressed me. He has a large frame. He doesn't have a lot of quick lateral movement. However, he's a guy who is hard to bring down. He was a kick returner. He ran a lot of touchdowns back. He's a guy that I'm keeping my eye on, especially in best ball, but in season long, I'm keeping an eye on him either on the waiver wire or making him my last pick.
All right, and for
Man,
my...
That is a deep sleeper.
That's deep. Yeah, he's deep in there.
I'm going to sound like a
God.
fucking genius if that pays
Yeah.
off.
Wow. He's going to be the Deshaun Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so for my late round flyer pick, you can pick him up basically with your last pick, maybe the round before that, but my guy is Justice Hill of the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are going to be running the ball a shit ton because Lamar Jackson, he's going to throw 25 balls a game. The rest of the time they're going to be running. They already have insane rushing numbers from last year's. They're going to have a ton of plays because they're picking up 4 yards a play basically. And the Ravens have been known to kind of ride the hot hand in the backfield. And even a secondary role behind Mark Ingram in this offense, I think, could still get 10 to 15 touches per game. And Justice Hill is just an incredible talent. A lot of people comped him to Reggie Bush coming out. He's got one hell of a spin move. I mean, there's really no competition in the backfield, I think, that compares to him, besides, obviously, Mark Ingram's going to get the top role, but Gus Edwards and Kenneth Dixon are the two other he has to go against. Neither of them are really great receiving backs, so I could see him getting a lot of third down work. And Gus Edwards last year averaged 5 yards per carry in this role. I mean, their offensive line is pretty good, and Justice Hill is a far better player than Gus Edwards or Kenneth Dixon, and I expect one of them to be cut. And although Mark Ingram has been brought in to be the guy, I don't think he's never really been the guy to carry the ball 250 times, 270 times, or anything like that. He's always been a complimentary role guy, and I just don't see that changing, especially with this offense, how many times they're going to be running the ball. I could see it wearing down backs, and they've shown again in the last couple of years they like to switch it up sometimes. Talk to Alex Collins last year, all those people that got him, they're not very happy.
I'm sad now. Thank you for bringing him up.
Oh, gosh.
Which is funny. I just want to put it out there. Remember, Baltimore is down big in a game, right? They kept using, I can't remember which running back, but it wasn't Collins in the passing game. Collins comes in, gets a reception for 20 yards, gets a reception for 11 yards, then they take him out and he never comes back in. So, I don't know. Like, we give a lot of crap to Adam Gase, but Harbaugh does weird things with his running backs. And I mean, that's...
And, I mean, if you don't grab him at the start, or I mean, in the draft, I would just keep your eye on him on the waiver wires. He's probably going to be available on a lot of the waiver wires in all these leagues. So I expect him to be probably a better second half guy. But
yeah, and I think it's a great best ball pick as well. And like you said, just the fact that the Ravens are going to run the ball so much, it would be impossible in today's game to have a bell cow, because then you're bordering on like 500 touches. Yeah, they have no choice but to rotate it back.
Send him to the slaughter.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. So why not Justice Hill? And I think he showed a lot of skill in college. So
maybe they should put an offensive lineman back there at running back. He'll be able to take some hits.
Well, the thing is, I mean, they're going to run the ball a lot, but you have to remember, almost half of that's going to be Lamar Jackson. Like, Lamar Jackson may get near 200 rushes this season if he used like he was used last year.
Withstand.
Yeah, if he could somehow be alive and be used the same, it would take... that takes a lot of opportunity away from Justice Hill, in my opinion. Because I still think Mark Ingram's going to be not a bell cow, but he's going to be the guy back there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so that's going to wrap up our first podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. I think next up will be another mock draft battle, so stay tuned for that. See you guys.
Later.
Bye.